This video is to introduce the four first-year courses of the Q-LEAP3 program. Those courses are Academic Issues, Global Issues, Production 1 and 2. These are the courses that will begin in the spring of 2021. The reason that I guess you're watching this video is not because you would like to know just about the syllabus, but that it would be helpful for you to understand a little bit more about the rationale and background to the updating of the syllabus from the original Q-LEAP1 to Q-LEAP2 and to the new Q-LEAP3. Q-LEAP3 is connected to the responsibilities of Kyushu University as part of the Top Global University project. The intent of this project was to provide additional funding for universities to adopt new approaches to become a more globalized system of universities. Type A were intended to be examples of good globalized universities that could improve their global rankings. Type B were universities that would be provided support so that they could try new types of teaching, new types of activities that could then be demonstrated to the other universities in Japan. The concept of the Top Global University project was connected to the idea of global jinzai, so the developing of global human resources. These would be students who would go into the workplace with a stronger understanding of how they could participate to improve their career prospects in an increasingly globalized working environment. Connected to this, Kyushu University began the Kyoso Gakubu, the School of Interdisciplinary Studies. And through this process, it was decided that the regular courses, the required courses for first-year students, should be updated to reflect some of the experiences that had been collected during the teaching of the intensive English courses for first-year Kyoso students. So the changes that have been made to the curriculum are intended to reflect an increased focus upon this concept of global jinzai, so that students at the end of their regular courses will feel more confident and competent to be able to use English as a tool for their future studies and for their future working lives. So that's the general background behind this change. And so if you have any ideas of how to improve or change your courses, or you have any motivation to include additional materials, please keep that in mind. Those are the goals. So to become more academically competent, more internationally and globally confident, these are the aims of the courses that we have designed for the new Q-LEAP3 curriculum. So the courses that we're going to be looking at in this video are Academic Issues and Global Issues. These are the courses that occur in the spring-summer semester. So they're semester-based courses. And Production 1 and 2, these will occur in the fall-winter quarters, and they are quarter-based 8-week courses. They fall in the first year, and this is where they are in the semester 1 and semester 2. Academic Issues and Global Issues run concurrently during semester 1, and they are primarily focused on receptive skills. And in a moment, we will look at how they differ in this approach. And the semester 2 courses, Production 1 and Production 2, as their name might suggest, focus primarily on production. But all 4 of these courses are intended to include at least some of what we would consider to be the 4 regular skills to a competent, confident, basic level. So we're looking at, in reception, listening and reading. And in semester 2, we're looking at writing and speaking. But to some extent, all courses will, of course, need to touch on these 4 regular skills. We need to keep this in mind because, as I mentioned before, the idea is that these courses are to set up our students to be more competent in their use of English in their future English courses, but then also that they will be able to recall and use these skills at a time that they will need at some point in the future, whether it's on campus outside of class or in their future careers or in their future lives. So although they are roughly split into reception and production, there needs to be some content that includes other skills as well. So academic issues and global issues occur in the first semester of the year, and production 1 and 2 occur in the second semester of the year. Academic English, academic issues is a receptive skills course primarily focused on reading and listening comprehension. So we understand that in their future academic career, students will need to interact with texts, either if they are doing research or if they are taking lectures in English. And so giving students more guidance in how to interact with such texts is the primary focus of academic issues. We want students to be able to understand and explain vocabulary and also the characteristics of written spoken academic English, because this will be connected to what they do in semester 2. So they're going to need to understand these common basic structures of what an academic English text looks like. We want them to be able to demonstrate that they have practical reading and listening strategies so that they are able to process texts in real time and understand the content, the purposes that it was written for or spoken for. So there needs to be some element of critical analysis of the texts being used in the class. This course ostensibly replaces the original reception course from Q-LEAPs 1 and 2. So in the syllabus, you will see similar skills being highlighted and ones that are used generally for reading and listening activities. And of course, these would be prevalent in any assessments that are given to the students as well. Any additional materials that you choose to add to the textbooks, some of which are carried over from the original Q-LEAP 1 and 2 textbook list, you should make them of an academic focus. So trying to make sure that this idea of structure in relation to the academic context is forefronted in the choice of any additional materials. Global Issues is also a receptive skills course and aim to improve their receptive skills, but understanding more about their position in a increasingly globalized world. So you will note in the syllabus that we're not looking at necessarily global problems, although they will feature somewhat in the texts, both in the textbook and also texts that you choose. But that global issues are issues which affect us all. So things that they can expect to interact with in their future careers, or perhaps in discussions with students from other countries on campus in the next 4 years of their time at the university. So we recognize that being able to share and understand various viewpoints on global issues, there should include some discussion and writing activity based on the written and spoken academic English, which is included in the course. So you will note from the recommended textbooks, it moves more into trying to look at various perspectives of issues so that they can understand written and spoken academic English connected to various global topics. And as noted here, but also mentioned above, that they should be able to discuss global topics with a critical and analytical approach. Again, these are first year, first semester students. So the depth to which they'll be able to do this is perhaps limited to that level of skill, but introducing higher levels of critical analysis as class materials is something that is recommended. In terms of activity suggestions, from my experience of teaching the intensive English courses in first year in the Kyoso Gakubu, requiring students to do some form of original research as homework activity would also help them in production classes coming in the fall and winter courses as well. So requiring students to preview or summarize the texts that are going to be used or have been used in class is one possible homework activity. We need to give serious consideration to homework activities, as in order for students to fully grasp perhaps the complexities of this course, they're going to need to use up some of their out of class time to go back and review these materials. So homework activities should be linked to classroom content. And also, please make sure that you're considering for all of your courses sufficient homework to fulfill the requirements of out of class work. One activity that I did in my first year classes with the Kyoso students was having them keep a listening journal, which is something that can be done in various ways. You can do it through Moodle, through a text input assessment. So have them complete certain in that way. You can do it through sharing documents through OneDrive folders. That's something else that allows you to keep up to date with their work and share the work between you and individual students. A listening journal is where these students are given a particular topic. They go and find, say, 3 to 5 independent sources, summarize what they've found, give you perhaps the hyperlinks of the pages that they have read so that you can review that they've done the work themselves, and provide a summary of that content and then provide their opinions of it. If this was done as a preparatory activity, then when the discussion activities come up in class, they already have some original content that they can share in pairs or in small groups. In the textbook World English 3, gold check, every 2 or 3 pages, there is a discussion activity of either a pair, a small group, or pairs of groups, actually, which allows students to check what has been covered in the last few pages. This can either be done as a pair conversation, it can be done as a short pair presentation to another pair, or if you wanted to make sure that you're keeping a handle on what the students are discussing in class, especially if you're not able to move around the class freely, then having someone in the group, I mean, you can change this responsibility per lesson, be the scribe, and then provide a written summary that that group submits either via Moodle or some other platform for you to be able to check. So these 2 courses, the academic issues and the global issues, are there to build up students' content competence. So in order that both in class and out of class, if required, they are able to interact with various texts and become more competent in discussing and using these texts. And so in the fall and winter semester, we move on to production 1 and 2. Unlike academic issues and global issues, which are running concurrently, Production 1 and 2 run consecutively. So the skills that are learned in Production 1 are intended to be therefore compounded by the skills focused on in Production 2. Production 1 tries to improve the productive skills for writing paragraphs and essays and also oral presentations. As with the previous courses from the spring-summer semester, these are intended to work towards an academic purpose. We want students to be able to understand the fundamentals of writing, the basic elements of a paragraph, and then the basic structure of an academic essay. They should be completing an essay of around 400 English words, and this is intended to be constructed from a redrafting, feedback from both instructors and peers, and then resubmission, redraft before the final version is submitted. We also want students to be able to demonstrate oral presentation skills. And it's noted here that individual or group presentations are both appropriate for this course. But because Production 1 is to focus mainly on structure, we recommend, and in the textbook that was produced by the department to go with this new Production 1 and 2, that group presentations might be more appropriate for Production 1 because it allows students to recognize the structure of an academic presentation without needing to include a large amount of content, self-produced content. So they might be responsible for only a minute of a 3 to 5 minute presentation rather than having to build the whole content at this stage. And then the grading based on the teacher's decisions is based on various writing and speaking assignments. So the emphasis moves away from reception towards production. But there is, of course, some need to include reading and listening activities because these may form the content of the essays that the students are writing. So this is a sample essay of the type that we would be expecting the students to produce. You can note from the topic that it is not necessarily an academic topic, but the structure is recognizably a 5-paragraph academic structure. So paragraph organizations with introduction through to conclusion, and the middle paragraphs providing the contents, the arguments, the support in an organized, logical, structured way. This one is 496 words in total. The one produced by the students does not have to be this long, but the structure is what we're aiming to focus on in both writing and speaking activities, because when we move to Production 2, this structure should already be in place, meaning that you can then build on the productive skills in Production 2 in order to write a short research paper based on the student's original research. So this is where the compounding of skills and activities from semester 1 comes in. If students become more confident in interacting with texts outside of the class, things that they have independently researched, then when we get to Production 2, the students should have that confidence and competence to be able to find some original research that is connected to the topic that they have chosen. We want the students then to be able to research by themselves under the guidance of the instructor, and then be able to cite and reference this research in an academic essay. We aim for students to complete a short research paper of about 500 words, and then demonstrate their ability to produce an individual oral presentation using visual support. So when we talk about visual support, what we mean is using a PowerPoint or some other such software. Other software brands are available, Apple has their own version of it. There are also freeware versions that are available online. If students are even more confident, they might use something like Prezi, which is a little bit more interactive and dynamic. But we want students to be able to support their work in in order that if they have to give an academic presentation in the future, or perhaps if they choose to join the foreign language presentation contest, they are able to do so with some degree of confidence. The essay that we are aiming for them to produce is not that much longer than what they produced in production one. And you can see that the structure is very similar, but it is the focus and the content that has to change. So based on their original idea and then on their original research, students should produce something similar to what we have shown here. So this is an essay that is of a similar length, so it's probably slightly longer than what we had in production one, but then the way that it is, the logical argument is constructed is more academic than was used in the production one essay. So having produced the essay in a similar manner to the essay in production one through redrafting, through feedback, and then resubmission, further feedback, resubmission, redrafting, it's intended that this forms the basis of the oral presentation, which will probably occur towards the end of the quarter. As noted, this should be supported by a visual support, and this is an example which is provided in the teacher's materials for the new textbook that has been produced for these two courses. And it should break down the sequence of the argument that is presented in the essay in a logical way, but rather than present all of the essay on the screen, it should support and not replace. So including keywords and phrases, but importantly, things like charts and pictures and visual representations of the text in the essay. So we suggest that the visual representation of the essay should be something which is supporting that which is being said, but in no way should replace someone reading the essay itself. And trying to demonstrate that having done original research and produced a research paper, sometimes students are requested or even required to give an oral representation of it, and that visual support is one way that can help strengthen an argument given in a research presentation, but should not replace the paper itself. So this example presentation and also the essays that we've been looking at are available as separate reference materials for both yourself as instructors and the students themselves to give them ideas about what the final finished product should be. The production activities are similar to what we had in Q-LEAP3 production classes, but as always, the aim should be to allow students the opportunity to demonstrate their understanding of perhaps some of the issues that have been covered in their reception classes in semester one. So please feel free to find out what textbooks they have been using in their reception classes, and then you'll know the kind of background that these students have or should have in order for you to think about perhaps some of the content that you recommend the students to do in their production activities. Of course, in class, the writing and speaking can be supplemented by other reading and listening activities. But as our focus is on making the students more academically focused, please make sure that any supplemental materials do have an academic focus to them. Thank you for listening to this presentation. And if you have any questions after watching what has been represented here, then please make sure you send your questions to the syllabus committee, and we look forward to answering them and hopefully providing you with a better understanding of how these courses fit with your work. Thank you very much.